colleagues, a nominee who said that he should close down the FBI headquarters where they do all the terrorism and they coordinate the cyber investigations. A nominee who repeatedly said, including in his hearing, that the FBI is corrupt. I pointed out to him is that during the previous director's time period, Christopher Wray, a director appointed by Donald Trump, the applications to the FBI went up threefold. To me, that shows that people view the agency with integrity. Do they agree with every prosecution ever made? Of course not. Are mistakes made? Yes. But the point is that Christopher Wray worked very hard to restore the morale and to bring that agency out into the fields to do good work. And to have an FBI nominee, think about this, who is repeatedly calling the people that he is supposed to be managing corrupt is beyond belief. At his committee hearing, Mr. Patel said all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. We said, great, okay. Yet just hours later, the administration forced out 8 of the Bureau's most senior career, let's say that again, career public servants who serve in nonpartisan roles. One day later, an email was sent to FBI employees requesting a list of everyone who had worked on January 6 cases, quote, to determine whether any additional personnel actions are necessary, end quote. So you just get assigned to a case. You're a brand new agent, or maybe you've been there and you have a specialty working on certain types of cases. You get assigned and now you're on this list. Seems a little bit reminiscent to the list that Kash Patel has at the end of his book. This could sweep up and will sweep up agents that are just doing their jobs. The FBI director's loyalty must be to the American people, to the Constitution, and to the rule of law. But Mr. Patel has made it clear that his loyalty is to the president. He has threatened to come after, those are his words, in the past, the president's critics, not just in government, but in the media. In the hearing, I gave Mr. Patel an opportunity to walk back that threat. He chose not to, nor did he try to explain his so-called deep state list of former government officials, including the former Republican Attorney General appointed by Donald Trump. He has accused the heroic men and women of the Capitol Police who defended our democracy on January 6 without evidence as lying and called for them to be investigated. One by one, we went through these allegations with him at his hearing. He could deny none of them. And I look to our Republican colleagues and say, when is enough enough? FBI, fidelity, bravery, integrity. The men and women of the FBI deserve better than this nominee, and I ask our Republican colleagues to stand up and say it too. And with that, I turn it over to Mr. Christopher Coons.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Kash Patel has no business being the director of the FBI. He may have said some reassuring things in his confirmation hearing. I don't think so, but some of our Republican colleagues think so. But a long history of public statements of what he wrote, of what he said in interviews and at rallies and in his book showed a sharply different approach and view about the FBI. In the confirmation hearing, I asked him 3 simple, direct questions about whether or not, as FBI director, he would continue a decades-long tradition of being independent. Political independence of the FBI is critical because it is the most powerful, most important federal law enforcement agency involved in investigating crimes and keeping the American people safe. I asked him if he understood who the FBI works for. And he answered, essentially, through the Department of Justice, the White House. I gave him another chance to answer not who they report to, but who they work for. And he said again, the White House. And I said, Mr. Patel, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General now, answered correctly that you work for the American people and the Constitution, not the White House. I asked if he would refuse a direct order from the president to do something inappropriate, immoral, or illegal, and he would not answer. I asked if he would follow the precedent of Director Wray and others who, when I asked the exact question, If given a direct order to do something unethical or illegal, would you resign? He declined to answer. As you've heard from my colleagues, the motto of the FBI is fidelity, bravery, and integrity. The brave men and women of the FBI, the people of law enforcement, the Capitol Police who protected us on January 6th, the men and women of law enforcement across the country who work to keep the American people safe, deserve, for a 10-year appointment, an FBI director who is a trustworthy partner, who will follow that motto and who will uphold the best traditions of the FBI. Kash Patel is not that man and does not deserve our support. Thank you. And I hand this now to Senator Mazie Hirono.
Thank you. It's just awesome what's happening to both the DOJ and the FBI. You've heard us talking about how important the independence of these agencies are to the safety of our country. And if we cannot trust the people who are leading the DOJ, for example, the highest ranking law enforcement officer in our country, the FBI that has all the levers and tools to investigate and go after people who are potentially harmful to our country, if we can't rely on these people to keep us safe, then we are in very deep trouble. And as you've heard from my colleagues, there are literally thousands of potential people who are working at the DOJ who worked on potentially the January 6th investigations who could be fired. What is going on? I remember asking Chris Wray, the FBI is supposed to be caring about domestic terrorism and keeping us safe domestically. I asked him, how many people, lone wolves, for example, is the FBI keeping track of? And he said hundreds in every state. So I'd like to have an FBI director who cares about that as opposed to looking inward, which is exactly what the DOJ and FBI is doing. The kind of firing that's going on is, we should all ask, what is going on? What is going on? These are scary times. And then to find out, they talk about, oh, we're so concerned about the FBI and the DOJ having been weaponized during the Biden years. If anybody is weaponizing these two agencies, it's the people who are about to take over. And I note that the Pam Bondi, she just created a weaponizing task force. What the heck is that? Except, once again, turning inward and looking at the people, the brave people who are working in the DOJ and FBI, and looking at them saying, are you next? These are crazy times. I now turn to my colleague, Alex Padilla.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. In addition to a lot of the specific concerns about Kash Patel and how he would be as an FBI director, I feel compelled to remind us of the moment that we are in right now. In the first few weeks of the second Trump administration, the chaos that has been created, we've seen efforts by the administration to unlawfully freeze federal funding, threatening payments to housing programs, Social Security, Medicare, beyond, etc. We have seen unprecedented access by the world's richest man, enabled by the richest president in history, to access the Treasury Department's databases, threatening not just payments, but putting at risk everybody in America's personal information. In times of chaos and crisis like this, the public deserves to see trusted leaders in the most important positions of our federal government. Trusted leaders who will stand up and say no to a president trying to blow through the very guardrails put in place by the Constitution. So it's in that context that makes the nomination and potential confirmation of Kash Patel even more alarming. Judgment, you've heard about that before. As we heard during the confirmation hearing, and yes, I asked about questions of his judgment in prior service. Willing to put the safety of military personnel at risk by giving false information during a hostage rescue operation. That's the kind of judgment you want at the FBI? I don't think so. Lack of preparation. When I asked him about his thoughts on what should be common sense gun safety policies and protocols, what his position was on things like universal background checks, either failed to answer, chose not to answer. Poor judgment, clear lack of preparation for the position of FBI director that oversees our background check system for a reason. When asked about his thoughts on the regulation of who in the United States of America should be able to own a machine gun, of all things. I'm not talking pistols, I'm talking machine guns here. Again, refusal to answer, lack of knowledge, lack of recognition that the FBI director oversees that very policy. Beyond concerning, beyond alarming. Let alone his lack of ability or lack of willingness to serve independently. It's not just the Department of Justice, it's been the FBI specifically that has performed at its best when it serves the people, when it honors the Constitution and respects the rule of law. Clearly, Kash Patel puts that secondary to his loyalty to Donald Trump. Look, the president was elected. I'm not denying the election or the results. The president has chosen a nominee. Disappointing choice in Kash Patel. Now it's up to the Senate to either confirm this nominee or not. It's clear where Senate Democrats stand. I think my biggest question is, where are Senate Republicans going to stand at this important moment in history? Will they choose the rule of law? Will they choose the Constitution? Will they choose to stay loyal to the very oath of office they've taken and their important advice and consent role? Or will they choose loyalty to a reckless president? We will soon find out. With that, let me introduce my colleague from the state of Vermont, Senator Peter Welch.
Well, I'll just sum up what I learned in the hearings with clarity. Kash Patel has a goal. It's to wreck the FBI. We are determined to do everything we can to save it. Thank you.
Questions? Attorney General Bondi wasted no time allying herself with Kash Patel and endorsing his candidacy to head the FBI. Traditionally, the FBI, of course, is the major investigative agency for the Department of Justice. So I think he's going to be hand in glove with her agenda. We saw part of it in the first 24 hours. I'm afraid we're going to see more.
So I would note one of the, go ahead, Mace.
No.
Okay, one of the orders specifically referred to the lawyers at Justice as the president's lawyers, which I suggest you look at that because that is just the antithesis of what the Department of Justice is. The president has lawyers. That's over at the White House in the counsel's office. The lawyers that work at the Justice Department, they work for the Justice Department, the administration of justice for the country. Their boss is the people.
Take two more questions. Yes. It'll be before the committee next week, and then after being reported out by the committee, it's up to the Republican leadership in the Senate to schedule it on the floor.
Senator, some of the questioning from Judiciary Democrats during the first hearing felt to me and others kind of sloppy and scattered. What was your strategy going into the hearing, and what would you hope to do differently?
There is so much information involving this individual and his book in all of his statements. It isn't just one single issue or one single question. We tried to cover the major questions, and of course, during the course of a hearing, other questions emerge. So, yes, he was a wealth of information. It's troublesome in light of this appointment. Thank you all very much.